Friends, and welcome back to Learning Torah Lishma. You know, sometimes I think it's important to point out certain things, especially when it's a person that did it so much. So, first of all, we want to publicly thank Elon Musk for the amazing technology and for him being a conduit of God to bring all this amazing stuff into this world, electric cars, spaceships, all these amazing things, and many other technologies, safety. Also to thank you for Twitter. Now, does there need to be a bit of a tikkun that the focus has become, instead of focusing on, instead of the focus being that individuals should be successful in life, the focus just became hating Jews. Does it need a bit of a tikkun? Yes. But at the same time, it's also doing amazing things, right? It's one of the main reasons that President Trump got elected. So we have a great thanks to Elon Musk and to President Trump and to all those great people that are trying to do the good work, the holy work. We thank them. I wanted to discuss a statement or a tweet more that Elon Musk said or tweeted. And then the person that he tweeted about mentioned it. So I want to talk about that for a moment. Elon Musk tweets that Nick J Fuentes is a Fed, and then Nick Fuentes on his show basically is saying, that this is crazy what Elon Musk is saying, that I'm a Fed, and for a regular person looking at that, it does look a bit, how could Elon Musk think that he's a Fed, right? So I think the answer to this is that very smart people work on a different realm. Fed became the word that is used for like how evil people get away with doing bad things. And what he's trying to say, which I'm going to put a video on the footnote, is that when Hitler started his whole thing, he got people to promulgate good about his way of looking at things, which involved killing many people for no good reason. And he tried to make that hype, and I'm going to link the video in the description below. He tried to make that hype here in America. And what happened is that the Jewish mafia actually stopped it. But what he was doing is he was making these big events and, doing things it's improper to discuss, but he was trying to make these big events, and there's also that second half, but trying to make these big events and make it the style to be proud of what the Nazis are doing, that America shouldn't fight back, and maybe to do the same thing that the Muslim, not the Arab, the Muslim community is trying to do, the radical Muslims, that they're trying to take over America, just in every aspect, politically, just simply outbirthing, if they're already, I think the counters they originally came in and there were X amount, and now, which, some, I don't know, low number, I don't know, was it 5 million, something like that, and now they're like 50 million here in America, and there's only 350 million people, so in a very short time, they will become the overwhelming majority. Americans, they're all happy they have 4 kids, and they don't realize that they have to have 4 for each spouse. Meaning, you need to have 8. You need to have 4 to 5 kids for each spouse. 8 to 10 kids. Jews actually, do have this. They marry young, and they do actually have. The girls are brought up the beauty of kids and bringing them up, and the girls want to have kids, and they try to maximize in a healthy way. It takes between a year and a half to a year and a half to 2 to 3 years, depending on the strength. Some people can even do less than a year and a half, depending on what's healthy for the girl with her strength. There are different people that there could be different things that have to be thought into, but of course, but in a healthy way, they try to maximize the amount of children that they could have. Now, there are a lot of Jews today that unfortunately aren't having big families. A lot of them simply because they're not getting married young, which is something that we talk about. They want to get married, but the system makes it very difficult to meet someone, and because of that, people end up getting married 10, 15 years after the fact when they wanted to get married. So let's say a boy wants to get married 8, 20, or 22. The same thing for a girl. All of a sudden she's finding that she has to wait 5, 10, 15, 20, and sometimes they never get married. You understand? So, but they do want to. That is, now in America, there isn't that idea. They just talk about how painful it is, this and that, and and also the system isn't run very well. So a lot of the kids, they just cause agmas nefesh. They just cause hurt, and you wish that you didn't have kids. You understand? So the system also has to be fixed. So there's a lot that needs to be done. But just to understand, a woman can, in a healthy way, we learned from Chana in the olden days, the max amount of children that one woman could have in a healthy way was 7 children. That we learned that from Chana. She had 7 kids. But today, a person could have more, and it's very common to have between 8 to 10 and even more than 10 kids. You understand? 10 is like the norm. Between 8 to 10 is the norm, and there's people that have a bit less or a bit more. You understand? A lot of people, they would have had a lot more kids. There's a lot of people that they would have had, like, let's say they have 6 kids, they would have easily have 9 or 10 kids, but then they get divorced because they weren't taught about marriage, how to treat the other sex. You understand? A boy and a girl, they think very differently, and they go into marriage thinking that the same way I treat a boy, I could treat my wife, and the same way I treat my friend that's a girl, I could treat my husband. It doesn't work that way. So, now people are getting divorced so quickly. I was speaking to this to this girl, and I was trying to convince her, that if your family, a father, a mother, a brother, a sister, an uncle, an aunt, a good friend suggests something, just go out. Don't say resume. Don't give them a hard time. And she was fighting with me that how I'm wrong. You understand? And then finally she said, so I kept on bringing it out, She would, say this, and I would show why not, and say it, it's basically they're repeating the same thing in many different ways, and you just tweak your answer according to what they said, because it's the same response. And after everything, you know what she said? She says, well, I could do it. I only trust myself. Meaning, and I said, well, you're only one person. I mean, hopefully it works out. Absolutely. But wouldn't you want other people to be able to carry the burden with you? You want to do it all by yourself? You don't trust anybody? And the trust is just to meet the person. That's it. You understand? So when someone suggests something, they're saying, we think this might be a good idea. Go out. You decide. No one's deciding. When you go to a shadchan, actually, lots of times they'll push you to marry somebody you don't want to marry, and a lot of people end up marrying that person. You understand? When it's a regular person, they don't push you. It's actually the best of all worlds. It comes easy. They don't push you. They actually respect you as a person, as opposed to a shadchan that just looks at you like a nebuch, like a child. You understand? And also the Chazal tell us, Ein chayvish mata atzmai bebeis asurim. Someone that is, trapped. How does he get out? He needs someone from the outside to free him. So Chazal teach us that that's the in life. When you have an issue, it's very hard for you to just pull yourself out of it. You need someone out. You need someone to pull you out, and that person needs you to pull them out. And it's much easier to solve someone else's problem than your own problem. So I told you, think of 10 people. I said family wasn't clicking, so I gave a number. I said, think of 10 people that you could trust. You understand? And what does trust mean? All it means is that if they suggest something, right? You ask their name, you ask their age, you ask for a picture. You understand? If they don't have a picture, they don't have, they're not official shotgun. So if they don't have a picture, they don't. But, that's it. And then you go out, I would say even go out without knowing any information. Just a picture alone. You understand? A lot of people today, girls don't realize that the boys are busy. We don't have endless time and endless money to just sit and spend on them. So, a boy wanting a picture is because lots of boys are just, I don't want to deal with it if there's no picture. Even if it's someone thought of something, they don't have the time, they don't have the resources. They're not Elon Musk, they're not Donald Trump. They don't have all the time in the world, and they don't have all the resources in the world. And the girl that they actually are interested in, they want to be able to give her a good time. But if they first spend it on 10 fat girls, and then after going out with 10 fat girls, then you get one skinny, healthy, good-looking girl, you can't treat her properly. You understand? Now, there are people that want fat girls, but you understand? But I'm just talking about the norm, And today there's very easy ways to lose weight, And it's time. You need a nutritionist. You need to work. You need to clean your house out from all the garbage food. Because if you have garbage food in the house, at the end of the day, you're going to end up eating it. You understand? So sometimes you have to, you have a parent, unfortunately what's very common is men don't think this way, but women do. And, this is a woman's fat. She wants everybody else to be fat like her. A man's fat, he's not thinking that other people should be. If anything, he's thinking of the other person. He's empathetic. He sees the difficulty that he caused. But a woman, she's just thinking about herself. And of course, there are many good women, but this is a trend that I do see that affects women, and many women have this issue. I've seen it myself. I've tried to help families that, let's say the mother's divorced and she's obese, and the kids, are gaining weight or are already fat, and especially kids at a young age, you just feed them healthy and they'll lose weight very quick. And it's easy because they're young. They can't just go buy all the junk food. They're very young. And you try to tell the mother, let's get rid of this thing and don't allow this in the house. Let's make things healthy. Why don't you buy, instead of buying all these cakes and nash, let's buy, the top level tier fruit that looks very good, tastes very good. Let's try to buy let's try to buy, there's many like interesting fruits around the world that you could get that, that are, let's get them into healthy, and you'll feel better. You'll lose weight, maybe because you lost weight. Now you'll be able to get married again. You understand? You won't have to marry a nebuch. You'll be able to marry, someone very good. And what about your kids? You help your kids, and you speak to them, and they just won't get rid of it. They're like, It's like Vashti with the tail. I am beautiful, and you're just talking nonsense. You understand? I don't know. They get into this self-destructive mode, you know, and that's the way they just go, and they just self-destruct themselves. So, um, so this is very important that you need to think that uh, it takes a husband and a wife, and for each of them there should be 4 to 5 kids at least. You understand? Which means 8 to 10 kids altogether. Without that, you have to understand the Muslims. They're like, they're what's happening in the UK, right? They're literally raping the white girls and having babies. Hamas, when they took all the hostages, many of them were females. You understand? They were girls, and many of them were of age that there could be a child, and they were all raped. So we think we got all the hostages, but we don't realize that there was kids that were born from the raping, and the Hamas took those kids. You understand? So it's people don't understand the extent of the evil. So the Arabs are basically raping all the women, impregnating them. The Muslims are basically raping the women, impregnating them, having multiple wives. 4 kids is nothing. It's nothing. It's nothing compared to the amount of kids that they're having. You're a goner, you're a loser if you're only having 4 kids. You need to be having at least 8 to 10 kids. Because when you're having at least 8 to 10 kids, you could have a nation, and you could slowly move out all the radical Muslims. You could move them out. And if the regular Muslims and even Arabs, if they don't speak up against the atrocities, why only Christians and Jews and atheists are speaking up against these atrocities? The Muslims themselves need to speak up against it. And if you see in their community that they're accepting it, they also have to be moved out. They're a danger. They're one step away from doing it themselves. If they had the ability, they would definitely do it. And that ability is being given to them on a silver platter, with abortion, with thinking that you're now repopulating America with 4 kids, with getting married late, all these things. Literally, America, with all its technology, is being given to them on a silver platter. In Iran, how is Iran making all these sophisticated missiles? They take their non-Muslim communities, the Iranians there, right? 20% is Muslim, and the other 80% isn't. So they take the Iranians who are smart, and they force them or pay them, whatever it is, to sit and build all the technology. So soon the whites in America, the regular Americans, will be enslaved for sure within 100 years. It's not even a question. They will be enslaved by the Arabs, and we will turn into like Iran, that you have this 20, that, right, they're going to have this 20% that's enslaving us. Now, to do that in America, you're going to need more than 20%. You understand? So, but once they become 51% of America, that will happen very quick. That's it. It's game over. They will infect all the seats, and the law won't be able to be pushed against, because they have their people in all the seats. and they just won't enforce the law, and they'll only enforce the what they hold as law. You understand? And that's it. We're going to turn into Iran. That the smart, intelligent people will be enslaved by the Muslims. And that's what's happening here. So what we said before, it's crucial that it's done. You understand? Now, getting back to Elon Musk. So Elon Musk tweets that Nick Fuentes is a Fed, and Nicholas J Fuentes, he says how ridiculous it is, and he's trying to belittle Elon Musk. Now, other people looking at it are also like, to think that he's a Fed, is he a person that is not very conducive in many ways? Yes. Does he have a certain aspect that he is conducive? Of course. But does he have like a serious flaw in his conduciveness? Yes, because he's basically saying that the Jews are the issue while the Muslims are taking over America, right? Jews aren't taking over America. Muslims are. They're literally going to, within 100 years, it's going to be a majority Muslim country. So the threat is not the Jews. You understand? And not only that, the Muslims, they blew up the Twin Towers. They did all types of acts here of terrorism and things that they try to do, but were stopped. Just recently, there was things here in Lakewood that happened, and you know, it's shocking. It's shocking what's happening. So, and you know, Baruch Hashem, thank Hashem, praise God that the FBI, I believe was the FBI, they caught them before they were gonna have a mass shooting on Jews. So it's clearly that the Muslims are the ones that is the imminent great danger. And who is he screaming about? The Jews. You know? So now, are there individual types of Jews like Joe, what's his name, Soros, and certain individual Bernie Sanders, and are there certain individuals that are terrible? Yes, but that doesn't represent the regular Jew. You know, the regular Jew is a good law-abiding citizen, and that whole thing that he screams about, that they have this party and the you know, all different first of all, that's a party made by Jews here in America, which is legal, and many other countries have as well. And not only that, they do much more. So to say, well, no, they're only afraid of Jews because the Jews focus on that specific person. Listen, all these other people, they have way more money. So I don't know how much, you know, what was it, like $12 million, whatever it was. That focusing doesn't do anything when you have billions and billions from everywhere else. You understand? So it's just false, that accusation, and you know, so you know, you know, so it's just false. It's just a false thing, and you know, I don't even know if it's true. You know, and not only that, all the other groups are also, if you speak against them, they also use their money to influence the elections to be that you shouldn't be elected. So it's everybody's doing that. You understand? Every other nation takes people that live here and tell them to open up a party, and that's how they affect the elections. And you know, so everybody's doing it, and it's legal to do it that way. So as long as it's legal, that's what everybody does. To point out one group which is doing very little compared to all the other groups, even compared to the other groups in and of themselves, they're doing so much more. You understand? We're talking about billions, and by Israel and by the Israeli group, you're talking about just a few million. Well, I think it was like 12 million, something like that. So it's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. And not only that, you see that the Israeli thing isn't working. Why? You see what they did with the campuses. You see how much hate people are having towards Judaism. You understand? You see that they're succeeding, and you're still saying, no, the Jews are succeeding. The Jews are barely staying alive in this whole race. You understand? So, if anything, the ones that are succeeding are Muslims. You understand? Is the, what's this called? With AGBQ, whatever it's called. Those are the ones succeeding. You understand? And they're getting filthy rich. You know, when a conservative comes to protest, he doesn't get money. But when one of these crazy imbeciles come, they're getting money for coming. You understand? So he's completely wrong when it comes to that. Completely wrong. That his hatred is in the wrong area, and it's probably because he still loves that girl that he met before that became a Jew. You know, I would say that would be the main reason. Not that he didn't get into the Daily Wire, but I think it's that love that when you're young and you met someone you love and then you missed out, it sort of haunts you for the rest of your life, especially if you're not married. Once you get married, then you start to heal. But he is not getting married, so that pain is inside of him still, and it's haunting him. It's haunting him, and it's sad because I see him talking to other, these LGBTQs and these all these woke people, and he does amazing. He does amazing. You understand? He could be. He is a huge. He could be he has the potential to be a complete force for good, but unfortunately he mixed some bad in it, and that's sort of taking away from all the good that he could do, which is sad. I think the first step to everything is you need to get married. You understand? Once you get married, you get a more leveled head. Pains of the past, especially which he does have trauma from the past in that area, goes away. You have a wife, you're able to be together with her intimately, you start to heal. You understand? We see that who's the big person that he thinks about? Kanye West, right? And we just sort of recently, I'll try to find it also and put that clip, that that link in the description below. We find Kanye West. He went to some makubal to ask forgiveness about how he treated the Jews. Unfortunately, he didn't come out and make public statements. So again and again, meaning he made many statements about how he hates Jews, and then there's just a video that someone took while he's asking forgiveness. I think he has to at least make the amount of times that he spoke against Jews. He says he should say how he was mistaken and explain why. You understand? At least he should be equal. Certainly just one thing, it's great that he's repented, but to get a full repentance, you really have to fix the issue that you caused. And he's really where this whole push towards anti-Semitism began mainstream. You understand? So he has a lot to fix. So now I just want to let the viewer know, I do know about the other things that he talked about that happened to him, but that, even though he's upset about that, and he's claiming that it's the Jews' fault or Ben Shapiro's, he was saying things that many other groups get very angry about, and it's very, very likely and more likely that those other groups are the ones that caused this cancellation to him. You understand? We don't find you're right? Ben Shapiro, who he is claiming caused the cancellation, literally says, "I don't think he should be canceled, but I'm not going to talk to someone like that." But the other groups, the LGBTQ, the woke, these other groups, they're actually saying cancellation. You understand? So the person that he's blaming for all his issues, Ben Shapiro, he's actually saying don't cancel him. Now, are there other Jews that are saying yes, cancel him? Whatever he mentioned this other, yes, but he doesn't claim that he's the one that caused all these problems to him. He's saying Ben Shapiro, the Daily Wire, but they're actually saying don't cancel him. They're just saying we're not going to speak with him. That's all. Just because a crazy person gets a big following doesn't mean you have to speak with him. There's a way of thinking about it that you should. There's a way of thinking about it that you shouldn't. And a person has a right to do what they feel is right for them. So that's basically what's happening there. Now, when it comes to the fact that we said, so people are thinking, it seems foolish what Elon Musk is saying, that Nick Fuentes is a Fed. It seems strange. Why is he saying that? You have to understand that smart people think on a higher level. Now, the Fed, until recently, now it's hopefully being changed over, but a Fed was looked at someone who would sneak in drugs, and that's how they would support themselves. They would be looked at, they're the ones that did this, did that bad thing, and they hide behind the law. If the people look at it like a mafia, but within the law, hiding behind the law, and they can't be touched, as opposed to a mafia that is not the FBI, and therefore they could be attacked. But if the mafia is FBI, then they can't be attacked. That's how people look at it. So when Elon Musk is saying he's a Fed, he doesn't necessarily mean a Fed, but he's trying to give that idea that he is connected to bad people, and it could just as well be the Fed, because the Fed are people that do these type of things. You understand? So that's what Elon Musk is saying, and he's saying he's a Fed. Why is this? Because his actions are causing the same thing that Hitler wanted to happen, that the Jewish mafia stopped, which I'll link that video. The Hitler sent people here to America to get the young Americans that to think that what Nazis are doing is great, and that's how he would prevent the youth, which is the people that you would need to fight against them, from not fighting against them. The Jewish mafia came, and they knew what was happening in Germany, but there was nothing they could do about it. But they knew what was happening. They weren't just killing Jews, they were killing gypsies, anybody that wasn't like them. They were just killing them and forcing them into slavery, having them build their planes and different things. Even car companies were using this slave labor. You understand? Unfortunately. So they knew that what was happening there was bad, and they're trying to make the young youth think that it's okay. They came and attacked them and stopped it. And now when America decided to get into the war, the people were able to see reason, because there wasn't all that propaganda and brainwashing before. And thank God, Baruch Hashem, America won the war. So Elon Musk is saying what Nick Fuentes is doing is the same thing. Let's say over there, it sounds like that by the Capitol. It sounds like he's inciting violence, even though you could say he's justified to incite it. That's I'm not a judge, so I'm not saying what is, what isn't. But so there's that, and then there's how he speaks. He thinks that the Muslim issue is basically a non-issue, when in reality, it is the biggest issue that we have. You understand? In America, it is the biggest issue that we have. So he's saying he's a Fed, meaning it could just as well be the feds, but it could also be a different group. He is helping them infiltrate and calm down the rhetoric against them so that they could infiltrate and get the youth thinking that there's no issue. Even though they blew up the Twin Towers, they're terrorizing the public. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. I think even recently this is what I saw. He spoke. He says, I wouldn't mind if you couldn't, if the guns were taken away. People was very limited. And we also know that. So look at that statement, and now let's look back to Japan, right, where they did the two before they did Hiroshima and Nagasaki, before they did the two atom bombs over there. What happened? Japan wanted to infiltrate America. They wanted to make an attack on shores. And what did the general, one of the generals there tell him? Who that was a general that came, and he was in America, and he got to see how it works. He says that there's guns everywhere, and you would never win. It would be guerrilla warfare. Even if you defeat the army, that's not enough. You have to defeat the people. The fact that the people have guns, which I think we have to make it more available, because the only people now that it's easy for them to have access to a gun are killers, rapists, those types of people. But everybody that's law-abiding, it's so difficult. It should just be a simple thing. They do a little background check, and you need to know how to fire. You need to have a good score on shooting. We don't want someone shooting and he doesn't know how to shoot. Instead of killing the person that's trying to kill him, he kills someone else, right? That's it. Make it easy, So Japan literally voted out attacking the mainland of America because everybody had guns. So you see how it protects the nation. And also within, right? If people know that a lot of people have guns, so then the terrorist says, you know what, I'm not going to take a chance there. I'll go to a place where they try to make everybody not have guns, because then my gun makes me the king over there. So you see how at one aspect he understands that, America first. Has many good ideas, but at the same time he has many bad ideas. And when a person first starts off and they have good and bad ideas, you need to know that you need to grow. You need to eventually get out of the bad ideas. As you grow, you realize, this wasn't a good idea, and then eventually you become everything positive. But when a person goes in, at 17, 18, and keeps those same opinions when he's already older, and he doesn't tweak anything, he doesn't change anything, this is an issue, because as you get older, you get smarter, you should realize more things, and you should realize things that you made a mistake about, and tell people that this was a mistake, and the new things that you realize are right, you should tell people about that. It's very weird that a person, if he's talking about many topics, that he got them all right. There are many times that you need to fix something. But it's this, I know he doesn't call himself gay, but it's this gay mentality, that whatever you said, you just never go away from it, basically. And that's like a woman's mentality. They just become stubborn in whatever they said, or their looks, or and that's something that women have to work hard on themselves, because that hurts themselves. You understand? And he's doing that same thing. He just gets locked into that one-minded way, instead of seeing the duplicity, instead of saying George Soros is bad, instead of saying Bernie Sanders is evil, and saying that the regular Jew especially the ones that are from, but even a regular Jew, that they're fine. Instead of saying that, he looks at Bernie Sanders, he looks at George Soros, he looks at people like that, and then he says everybody's bad. But you could do that literally to any group. So because of what we said, now we're starting to understand what Elon Musk was saying. Smart people talk in one word, in a few words, in a sentence, but you cannot just look at that sentence. You have to realize what they're saying. He's just saying he's a Fed because to Americans, a Fed is like the legal mafia. So you're saying he could be a Fed, or he could be part of some other mafia, people that are trying to take over the country, which his rhetoric is causing. You understand? By putting down the issue of the radical Muslims taking over, which they are, putting down that issue, and then raising up the issue of the Jews, of the blacks. I think the blacks are more, they are safer for our nation than radical Muslims. You understand? Radical Muslims, when they get in power, they will literally, what we see always, they kill out everybody else that doesn't convert. They'll video it. They don't even hide it. Blacks don't do that. Radical Muslims are worse than blacks, and a regular Muslim is not too far from that. So this is something that people need to realize, and this is what Elon Musk was saying. And you have to understand, when a genius says something, don't just belittle his words. No, come on. He understands what he's saying. He doesn't mean to say 100% he's Fed. He said he means to just say he's joined some type of mafia. That's all. It could be the FBI, and since it could be. So that's all he's saying, because what he's doing, his rhetoric let's put it that part of his rhetoric, a big aspect of his rhetoric that he talks about, will cause the downfall. Instead of focusing on the Muslims who are taking over, he focuses on the Jew, on the blacks. You understand? On people that are not Christian. But the Muslim, when it comes to Muslims, like, who cares? They're just a small minority, which they're not. And they're taking over. And very easily, within 100 years, we can have majority Muslim. And then what do you do then? So this is extremely important. And I haven't seen anybody that, talked about it. So I thought, it's something important to talk about and to bring out. And that's that. I love you, and Hashem loves you more. And I wish you all the best.